Hello there, it's Mike.
And Katie.
It's episode 168.
The one with the Kingsman and horror movies and more.
This week on Cup of Rad.
Hello, everyone.
There's no witty pun for this title.
I'm sorry, and I even, I sitting here, thinking what it's supposed to be, and I still almost messed it up a little bit of a skip there. But yeah, we were like, we gotta say something, but it's boring and sad.
Yeah. Well,
But that's okay. It doesn't mean the topic is boring and sad.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, Moira. It's the end. We finished Thundercats. Thundercats 2011. We finished it.
We did.
It
went by in a flash.
Yeah.
Lickety split.
It happened.
I don't know why I felt the need to say that.
Because you're channeling Moira suddenly. I don't know what's going on. Just fold the Thundercat in.
I don't know what you mean.
So we've been watching the remake, the 2011 remake, and we've been loving the show. It's been fantastic. There's only 23 episodes, and when you watch a couple episodes a weekend,
watch like 4 a weekend, and it goes by real fast.
It really flies by. Now the last few episodes, though, I will admit, were the weakest of the series because they dealt a lot with Wile E. Kit and Kat in their...
So much more than they needed to.
Yeah, in their thieving in the Dogtown.
Yeah.
Which was really disappointing because it went from the show feeling like it really felt purposeful and there wasn't a lot of filler to suddenly having quite a bit of downtime.
Well, that episode could have done... You could have had the same story, but with flashbacks, like if it had told what's going on with Kit and Kat and then what's going on with the other team in the same episode, that story could have been like half, and because there was a purpose of it ultimately, but it didn't need to be a whole episode.
Yeah.
So
that kind of was a bit of a...
It was oh great, there's another filler episode.
Right. When you're getting down to the final episode.
When we saw the end coming and we're like, crap, it's going to end. And it's going to have a cliffhanger.
Yeah. So the show ends on a 2-parter.
Yeah.
And we finally get Voltaire, because you find out that the birds live in a big city up above, and it's run basically by the Tech Stone,
creating the anti-gravity for
it. So at the end of it, you get a giant battle with Mumra and Lino up on this thing, and the thing's crashing, and he takes the Tech Stone, and then you find out that
that bitch
Pumaira, who's been evil all along, which really reminds me of the relationship, say, with Demona.
Yes.
Right? Like, it really felt like Gargoyles.
Yeah.
Where you were like, oh, great, there's this weird love-hate relationship. And then it's like, oh, shit, she bad.
Yeah.
Right? But, like, I always felt, because of that, I always felt that she was just a tricky bitch.
Yeah.
Right? And you find out that she's actually dead.
She was reincarnated. She was a zombie. Let's be honest.
She dead?
She did. She died under a slab of concrete, hating Lionel.
Yeah. And
she was so angry that she called out spirit form to Mumra, and Mumra reincarnated her as a tool for his deception and treachery.
Right?
The bitch crazy.
So
she's just a tool, though, an empty soul that's being used and manipulated. So
be careful what you do to people, because they could come back. The ancient spirits of evil might bring them back.
Right?
And then you will have to deal with that. So what did you think as a whole with this show?
Overall, I really enjoyed it. I liked the different spin on the characters and how they were developed. That there was a lot more meaning to each one of their personalities to them. And so I really did enjoy that, and a lot more reasoning as to why they were together rather than just like what exactly is the Thundercats and like what's really happening here. And so the only thing I had a hard time with was Tigra. him and Lionel being so angry at each other because it took so long. And then when they were seeming to be better, and then when they were seeming to be okay, then you had a love triangle in there.
Yeah.
And so I was hoping for a better relationship to develop quicker for them. But ultimately, it was a good story thread, though.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, and it really did drive the characters, and it did feel legitimate. So it was just hard to get used to for that.
Yeah.
But he was still improving. Their relationship still was moving the right direction.
Yeah.
And but I found myself more frustrated with Tigra than I did even with Lionel being kind of his stupid mistakes that he would do.
Yeah.
But overall, I really did enjoy it. So
That's good.
What about you?
I really liked the series. I loved the animation. It was very fluid, and the action in it was really incredible. I found that the movement and everything was just awesome to see, because you get to see the cats move a lot more, right, than they did in the old stuff with the flipping and the all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
My real issue with it came more from some of the design choices. I did not like Panthro's stretchy arms.
No.
Because he looked really cool. I love the look of him. And when he lost his hands, then he became Stretch Armstrong. And
He kind of had a bit of a gorilla look to him in a lot of the times, where it was like just a little bit longer.
yeah,
And I didn't like that.
yeah. And then that was just kind of weird. And and then just some of the voices I wasn't a big fan of. They weren't as strong in some places. But besides that,
What did you think of like Mumra's whole story of him being like techno based but also mythical, and like there's a lot going on.
There was a lot going on, and there was the hope for the payoff of like where it was all going, because the idea that he was in a spaceship with all these animals toting around the universe, destroying universes.
The Thanos Mumra.
Yeah, right. And then you see how much that they were supposed to. It was like a Thanos idea.
Yeah,
right?
he was just gathering stones.
Yeah, and to create his ultimate power.
Yeah.
So what was his whole game? Where was he going? Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's cool that we actually got to have more history. Like the description of the Sword of Plundar and the Sword of Omens and their connection with each other.
Yeah.
And like there was, for short of the series there was a lot of information of history building. And so I think that's why it was so much more difficult than when there was those filler episodes at the end, and then with it just being over.
Yeah.
I was like, but there was just so much potential for such a in-depth, like well-rounded story. So.
Oh, totally. Well, it's like they saw all the plot holes and the mistakes of the first one, of the original, and were like, how can we make it better? Now, I think they did miss out on adding characters in some of those roles where they created new original creatures or characters.
Yeah.
Where it feels like, as mystical and loving as you love the elephants, like, wouldn't that have been great to have been almost like the Hook Mountain?
Yeah.
Right? Like or something like that, right?
Yeah, they could have done a different version of it almost.
Yeah, like had a bunch of them instead of just one.
Yeah.
Or like the fish people, like that felt like it should have been Hammerhand almost, right? Like there was no real nods back to any of the old extra villains. It was only ever Mumra.
Yeah.
Right? Or even some of the only real people or race of people that they had that was from the old and the new was the Burbles.
Burbles, yeah.
Right? Everything else was just animal based, right?
Well, we had the one that was the elixir guy.
Yeah, the elixir guy, the wobble.
Yeah.
Woolly.
Something like that.
I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it had that.
And the Momra and Godzilla monster fight.
Oh yeah.
Not Momra, sorry, Mothra.
The Mothra.
Yes.
Episode.
That was pretty fantastic.
With the that was pretty
giant,
wild.
Amazing butterfly caterpillar, the dude that turns into the butterfly and destroys the
T-Rex.
The T-Rex demon. Yeah, that was pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Mumra was scarier in this one. He was definitely not as much of a joke.
Yeah.
He didn't but what was interesting, he didn't have a weakness in this.
Just sunlight.
Yeah.
It's sunlight.
So it was like a vampire.
Yeah.
But like then again, he also didn't like his mirror. The mirrors, that can be even something more like that, with the idea of not liking.
They didn't use the mirrors in this one.
No, I know, but
in the old one.
But in the old one, right? Yeah. So, I mean,
only for the first season.
Sunlight is a more beneficial bad issue than just a mirror. But I like that he, at least at the very end there, did use a transformation of some sort and turned himself into a demon thing. So that was that. But Mumra was definitely a different villain in this. Yeah.
So I'm sad to see that, we didn't get anything more. And I know we didn't watch it when it originally came out, but it wasn't available to us.
Yeah, we did know, yeah.
And it's sad to see that it didn't get finished. It would be cool. They could probably finish it in, an hour and a half movie.
They could do a movie, yeah.
And they could probably tie up a lot of threads if they just went hard, right? Yeah. Just did it. I looked up a lot of the stuff that talked about where it was supposed to go, and there were some weird possibilities. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if the studio was afraid of where they were hoping to go with it. Yeah. So there's the rumors of the fact that Mumra had created the Snarfs, and we're going to see more Snarfs. They were a failed experiment, or he created the animals as well. Mm. There was also where it was the idea that Lino, after failing and everything, was going to go into the Book of Omens for training and not come out for 10 years. Oh, wow. And they were going to flash forward and have the Chitara and Tagra were married, and they had Bengali as their son. And,
Wolos,
yeah.
That's what the character was. Sorry.
We kind of had it right. Yeah. Wobbly wobblies. So some things like that, and there was also going to be...
My favorite side characters was the little plants, though. The seeds.
Oh, the seed episode?
Yeah.
I like the guy, the floating guy. Even though...
Oh, I do too. But I like... The seeds kind of reminded me of a anime, Spirit Way type style.
But see, those two were filler episodes, but they felt meaningful.
Yes, exactly. Well, because it was early enough in the show to really still be having hardcore character development. Yeah. So, but anyways, I apologize. Other rumors.
Oh, and then Kit and Kat, he was going to go off and become the King of Thieves, which didn't make sense for her.
I was going to... When you told me that, I'm like...
And then...
She was going to be the Queen of Elephants.
Yeah. So, and Panther was going to go back into the spirit realm and try to get his arms back, apparently.
That doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Yeah. I said, these are just the rumors or the spitball thing. So I don't know if maybe they heard all this stuff and they were just, and then the declining toy sales and the fact that, the bulk of the fans, they didn't even like it the first time around, that it just kind of tanked. But I think that's the idea though, is we can get so stuck on an original and we don't allow any introspect into something new or different, and this would just be the idea of the multiverse. It doesn't replace the original.
Well, no,
it's its own thing.
It's a completely different story, right? And it's just the concept of it. What if we took these basic characters and told a different story with them? It doesn't change the original Thundercats of what we watched. And, I think there's so much potential for this, the 2011 series that never got to show up, right?
No. I think the franchise itself could be bigger than it really is, but they just don't get the chance to really explore it.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd totally be down for toys if Super 7 ever got to the...
Yeah.
Right, especially Panther. I think Panther would be a cool one.
Yeah.
Just because of he's so much different in his look.
Yeah.
Right. Just as long as he wasn't the stretchy arm version. Pre-astral plane arm hacking.
Yeah.
So, but if you can find it, definitely go check it out. Yeah. It's a fun show to watch. I've enjoyed all three incarnations of the Thundercats.
Yeah. They all have a very unique, fun charm about them.
So. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, we're dealing with a really weird ass premise.
Yep.
Alien cat people.
Yep.
Fighting a mummy.
I mean, when you say it like that, you're like, any story that is decent with that premise.
Yeah, if it makes you laugh, cry, whatever. But it's a good time, right?
Yeah.
So our next cartoon we're going to tackle, and it's quite timely, but we're going to be looking at The Batman. So we broke out the Dirty Dirty DVD,
No, we did.
and we'll be looking at that one. So that'll be exciting to rewatch that. So, when I was sick, I'm going to take point on this, and then we'll go into movies that you can talk with me about.
No.
But when I was sick, I was finally feeling better enough, so I was like, I'm going to go watch something, because the one day I was sick, I just literally stayed in bed.
I was also home, so I took up their house.
But I didn't even want to get up. Right?
I know.
So, but I was feeling better enough, so I decided, I'm going to go watch a movie. I don't take that opportunity that often, because there's a ton of movies that dropped on all the different streaming services. And I'm like, how are we going to watch these? And I knew that your jam really wasn't the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, no.
So Netflix had dropped a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. So I was like, I'm going to check this out because the trailer looked kind of cool. So I started watching it. It was a mistake. I'm really disappointed. I was hoping for more only because it being a legendary production. I was hoping that it would have been a bit higher caliber.
Mm-hmm.
What I can say for positives is it was pretty looking. Second positive is that it didn't go into the torture porn-esque grotesque like the later versions of the early 2000 Texas Chainsaw, like sequels. Like the first one remake I thought was good, but then the sequels after the remake got more into the gross, more like, how can we up the ante? This one was pretty standard for its gore, and it did feel very Hollywood, but it also wasn't nearly as gross, feeling like it wasn't going to the excess. Yeah. Right? And we actually got a massacre. There was a massacre. Like 16 people died on a bus, and you got to see those 16 people get hacked up with a chainsaw on the bus. So there was a chainsaw massacre.
That's cool.
With, being that there was a lot of people. But it was... But
at least true to its...
That was probably my favorite... And it's not going to sound sick, but that was probably my favorite part of the movie. Because it was just a bit different. And there was a good commentary, because when Leatherface shows up on the bus, all these drunk people, they pull out their phones instantly and start live streaming. Mm-hmm. And then you see the phone and people are loving it and hearting it and asking where this experience is. This looks super cool. Oh my God, this is great. Instead of seeing the fact that the guy is literally getting murdered on the camera. Right. I thought that was an interesting commentary. So I'd say that was probably the best part of the movie. Now, the reason why I say it was a mistake was that you didn't care about the characters. At least I felt I didn't care about it. Maybe it's because I don't like realty and land developers. Yeah. But the story basically is the idea that a dead town these people come in and they've bought up all the deeds to this dead town and they're gonna sell them off in an auction. Well, they go to a house and there's an old lady and she's like, no, I have the deed. And they're like, no, get out. This is our place. What are you talking about? And her boy comes out and big hulking brute, and she dies on the way to the hospital, and you find out that the big hulking brute is Leatherface, and she's been keeping him at bay since the original Texas Chainsaw. So that was in 74 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Right now we're in 2022 kind of idea, right? So the idea too that there's been this is kind of doing like the Halloween thing where it's erasing everything and trying to say like all the sequels didn't happen. This is the sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw. Oh, okay. So then you find out that the survivor, she's been like hanging out, waiting. She's a ranger on her own right. Because they couldn't identify Leatherface because he was wearing a mask, so they could never find him. Right. So the idea is that these greedy people had just listened to the old lady and not started like swearing at her and telling her she was wrong and got the police involved and dragged her out and she died. Leatherface would have never ripped her face off, put it on, and killed everyone. Yep. So the moral of the story is... Because she actually still had the deed. They go into the house and find that she had the deed. So she actually had paid. She was supposed to be there. but they just assumed that she was old, and because she looked poor and looked like she was squatting, the rich, land developers, even though they were like younger than us, unleashed the beast.
Yep.
So I didn't feel for them when they died.
You totally deserved it, you assholes.
Right? And you shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Right? And then they went to go have like the Laurie Strode like moment from the new Halloween movies, and it fell flat too because he just guts her. Yeah. Right? Like it was like she trained all these years only to get gutted with a chainsaw. So there was a lot of ridiculousness to it too, like a lot of laughable moments. So I don't recommend it. I don't think it's worth the 90 minutes that you could watch because it wasn't. I felt bored.
He sent me this message and I watched this movie. It was bad. Like, he doesn't normally say that for a movie. Like, he could say I'm disappointed or it could have been better, but to say a movie is truly bad, takes a.
And it's like
hard
because you. At the end of the day, a horror movie, you want to root for someone. And at the end of the day, I was rooting for Leatherface to kill people. And I'm like, I shouldn't feel that way. Right? Because the people that were in it didn't... The one guy that died that was an asshole, but he was a decent asshole that was just in the town. He's the guy that should have lived, but he died. Some of the fact... Like, it was just a weird... Like... I found out, too, that it actually had directorial problems after I watched it. They fired some directors and they hired other ones. But it wasn't even filmed in Texas. It wasn't even filmed in the States. It was filmed in Bulgaria.
Oh.
So...
It's a Bulgarian Chainsaw Massacre?
Apparently. So... but yeah, so Netflix. So there you go. Usually you don't get a cup of, like, disappointment.
It is. But, it's a sad cup.
So... This is not even a
cup of sadness.
It's not even like it's not even going to like a gas station coffee cup. Like this is like hobo coffee through a sock. That you don't know if it was made with water or urine. So
wow, he went there.
So
do we have something wonderful to follow that up, or?
Well, we finally actually watched Halloween Kills. Speaking of another horror movie that's doing the same thing.
Yeah. We finally got that rental for us. So it was like, well, apparently we're watching a February horror movie.
A lot of horror movies came out in February.
Yeah.
Like Disney Plus dropped a bunch of horror movies.
Yeah.
As well. So apparently they all just know that we just miss horror movies at this time of the year.
Apparently.
But yes, Halloween Kills, the sequel to Halloween, which was a sequel to Halloween.
Yeah, I don't understand why the Halloween, the newest Halloween didn't have a subtitle. Like, I don't understand that. It really bothers me.
So this is a direct sequel to Halloween, the one that came out a couple years ago.
So it was Halloween 2020?
2018, actually.
2018. Oh, wow. It's been a long time.
This one actually was delayed because of COVID. It actually should came, right? So it's the idea that Michael Myers escapes the fire. So if you haven't seen that one, guess what? He escapes the fire. Right.
I know they're just doing their job, and I know they're trying to look, but oh my gosh, let the building burn.
What I find interesting about Halloween Kills is Halloween Kills follows the rules of Scream.
Okay. Well, there's
the sequel rules. Mm-hmm. The kills are bigger, the kills are more, and expect the unexpected.
There you go.
Right? Like
a lot of people died.
A lot of people died in this one.
Yes.
There was lots of murder. A lot of death. Like it amped up all the kills, and some of the kills were more violent and more brutal than the other one.
Yeah.
Right? And then it was twisted because the idea that Michael Myers is not actually after Strode. Mm-hmm. He just wants to go home. Yeah. Right? That's his connection.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting shift suddenly. And that realization that something you've been basing something on for so long.
Yeah. And
then just by acknowledging, well, what if it was this instead?
Yeah.
And you can just see it totally in a different light, right?
Yeah. Oh, and the other rule is that no one's safe.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we had that happen.
Yeah.
Right? So I thought that was hilarious because it followed Scream's sequel rules.
Yeah, that is funny.
And, you know, now for me, Halloween Kills, I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
But it did feel very much like a standard Hollywood sequel for the most part.
Yeah.
Right? Like it didn't where Halloween from 2018 there kind of flipped it a bit and changed it and really kind of fleshed out the mythos and all that.
Mm-hmm.
This one kind of felt bogged down with...
There's a lot of characters.
Yeah. And it trying to like build off of the mythology and try to tie in characters from past Halloweens that, you know, to... And then... But then also like try something new, but amp up the murders. So it just kind of felt very heavy.
Yeah.
Right? Like in that retrospect of wondering, should they have just, because they ended up greenlighting 2 sequels, right? Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, right? Should they have just maybe stuck with Halloween Ends? I know we haven't seen Halloween Ends, but so that there was a trilogy where it was like Halloween, whatever we're going to call it, Halloween Ends versus Halloween, whatever we're going to call it, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, right?
There's another Halloween? Oh, like, the original Halloween.
Yeah, because these are all sequels to the original Halloween.
So like a trilogy of the original Halloween.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Instead of being like, now it's going to be four movies.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
like,
okay, yeah, I get that.
So, because it feels a bit like it's bloat more than anything, right?
Yeah.
So, I still enjoyed it though. I'd watch it before I'd watch Texas Chainsaw again.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know, I have no real problems other than it just felt not necessary.
It was interesting to see the mob mentality of people, like,
and that was
you
cool.
wanted to you understood of them so desperate to purge their town of something so horrible, but they also not listening at all. It was just someone that looks like it might be part of the issue.
Oh, yeah.
And we're just going to go for it.
Yeah.
And that was really hard to watch.
Yeah.
That was really, really sad.
Well, it showed that they were just how scared they are and how much they were willing to do whatever they thought was right.
Yeah.
Right, because someone told them it was, and it's a commentary on everything in life.
Someone
now.
who wouldn't have made any sense that would have known that too, right?
Yeah,
it's like it was just someone had to say it versus someone who was in the know and who would have a legitimate, educated decision on it.
Yeah,
that didn't matter. It was just whoever was the first person to say what they wanted to hear, and they ran with it.
Yeah.
So.
It filled their bias to what they needed.
Yeah, and then it became truth to them.
Yeah.
And anyone who told them otherwise was lying.
Yeah.
So there's some good commentary on that.
Oh, totally.
So
totally. It spoke to how our world is.
Mm-hmm.
So and maybe that's why it also didn't do well. It got too close to home.
Yeah, you see that, right?
Right. So but what did you like? What are your final thoughts on it?
I enjoyed it, as I say. I mean, I did feel like there was a lot of characters.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense to see the amount of people that were dying. Back and forth with that. I did like the idea that he wasn't necessarily after Schroed, only because it makes more sense for him to want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Ties back to originally with him starting, rather than it wasn't like he started killing just because of her type thing.
Yeah.
I can understand the concept though of it being after her because she's the one that survived. So I do get that.
But she only survived because like he was going through the town trying to get home. Like when you think of that, you think back to the original, then she was just part of that
she's just part of his path,
and she got in his way.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I kind of like that actually. Yeah. So.
No, that was just interesting because it's that idea that he's just trying to.
And there's a commentary right there of instead of just thinking we were part of the path of something that happened, we decided we were egotistical enough to decide that the focus was actually on us versus we just were part of the timeline of things that happened, right? So
because if you think back, he was, a 6-year-old boy when he was taken into custody. Then he escaped. So what was he trying to do? He was trying to go home that night, back to his original house.
Because you could tell it showed the comfort of staring out that window.
Yeah.
All the time he needed. That was his safe place there, right?
So then the idea that Laurie got in the way. So now that's all he's been trying to do is get home.
Yeah.
Because when he
it has to be about us.
And then they're like, well, he came and got me at my cabin. Well, no, he was brought there.
Yep.
Right.
I thought that was really good to point out.
Yeah.
Like, no, he didn't go there on his own volition, right?
Yeah. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the third one, because now Laurie's decided to leave the hospital, and she says it's going to end. So she wants to end this, right? And she doesn't know that her daughter's dead.
Yeah, she doesn't. Well, she assumes, though, 'cause she was on the phone with her. Or she was trying to call her. Never mind. She just couldn't get a hold of her.
Yeah.
But I know that was shocking for sure. I didn't expect them to do that. Because
no one's safe in a sequel.
Expect Laurie to die, but not. But it's interesting even telling her that it's not her that he was after.
Yeah.
And you can tell she can't grasp that because
she's so broken.
Because that would mean then she fucked up her whole life.
Yeah.
And that she had focused on this for so long for no reason.
Yeah.
And so accepting that reality just isn't an option for her, right? And it's not going to be an option when she learns about her daughter too, right? So it's interesting to show the power of what we do to ourselves when we believe something is a certain way too.
Yeah.
So there's some really big ideas in something as quote unquote simple as a horror movie.
Yeah.
And I think that is what gives it more weight, right?
Yeah.
So
So Halloween Kills, it is a lot of murder, a lot of mayhem, and a lot of sequel bloat, but at the same time there is a lot of goodness in there to look at in a different realm.
Yeah.
So if you can find yourself that, definitely give it a check if you haven't already.
Mm.
It's on video on demand still, I think.
Yeah.
Or purchase. We got ours from the library.
Yes.
So, and the third and final film of our evening it showed up on Disney Plus. It's also on Hulu. The King's Man.
Yes, finally got to see this.
Matthew Vaughn's prequel to The King's Men.
So it shows the origin of the Kingsman Society, basically, and how it came about, and how it decided that it needed to be in place.
Yeah, so it all takes place around World War One, and everything that's happening with World War One, and it
starts in 1904 is the initial kickoff of it. You kind of get a bit of a history idea, and then it jumps forward to 1912, and you have you get to see all the pieces moving that kickstart World War One, and actually learned some things, quite honestly, because some of it was definitely still based in fact.
Yeah.
Like you get to learn that the King George, was it? So the King of Britain, the Russian Tsar, and the German leader,
Kaiser,
thank you, were all cousins.
Yeah. And
that's really true.
Yeah.
And when you read about all the different the connections of the monarchs and how much there was, they just crossed family members all which way and what, and so then they all end up being related, and so that was kind of fun to actually learn some of that stuff, So it was quite a soap opera almost of it being kind of built up from there. So. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was interesting to see all that and how that played off. The movie definitely is not as zany as the Kingsman movie were. There's less humor in it. It is a lot more dramatic. Yes. But there's some really good action. There's some pretty incredible action in some spots, and there is some goofy action. Yeah. Especially with the Russian Rasputin. Yes. Right.
He was creepy.
Yeah.
That was maybe very cringy with the way he was portrayed. It's interesting to see how Rasputin is always portrayed so terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously is because he was terrible, and I know that he was, but this one was like a whole new level of creepy and manipulative.
Yeah.
So,
and he could dance fight.
He could dance fight, and that was phenomenal.
Right? Like, this is what Russian ballet really is, apparently.
Right?
It's death battle.
Maybe
fighting.
Yeah, there you go.
Training.
Yeah.
So I actually really enjoyed it. It was actually a really enjoyable film.
I was worried that it was gonna be not live up to my hype for it, and so I wasn't expecting much.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it way more than I thought I could.
Yeah.
So which was really awesome.
Yeah, it was 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it was a little bit longer, but it didn't really feel like, oh my goodness, it's taking forever.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to know what was going on, because it's that solving the mystery of who's pulling the strings. Of, they're basically there's right-hand men for all the leaders, and they're controlling parts of the government to influence of how they go to war. And so there's good conspiracy aspects, shadowy government idea, right?
It's not Ewan McGregor. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
So, which I was a little disappointed by.
Yeah. But there was some shocking people died that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And that I was thoroughly shocked by. They did a good job of discussing the horrors of war, and how many millions of young men wanted to go to the war and feel like it was something that they needed and should do, and how many, I'm sure, quickly came to regret it, and realizing that isn't have to be the way. It shouldn't have to be the choice. And, there was a lot to it. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So.
No, I would recommend it. Like, if you enjoy that action and some historical kind of feel, it's fun. It's zany. It's not a Dunkirk like dramatic one. It's still in the Kingsman universe, so there's still
has that vibe,
the goofiness in some points. So but I was pleasantly surprised. I'd seen quite a few bad reviews and all that, and I was a little worried that it was going to be kind of a trash boat, and it wasn't. It was quite enjoyable. I'd watch it again. Mm-hmm. Like, I quite enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than Kingsman 2.
I think I did too, because Kingsman 2 had a lot of like, what the heck is happening? And I think I did too as well.
Yeah. So it's on Disney Plus and Hulu. The King's Man. Ralph Fiennes did a great job. So
yes,
and that's it. That's it for this episode.
Yeah, we're good. Well, thank you guys for helping us catch all back up here, and thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
And remember, stay rad, dudes.